Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast where we talk about real Canadian rugby. I'm Stu Hardy, joined as always by Derek Brissett. Now, spoiler warning, we will be joined by another person later, a special guest. But for now, it is time to recap on the weekend's activities and everything that's been going on since we were last here. Derek, what have you been up to?
Oh yeah, had a pretty solid weekend. Played a little Aussie rules football. Had a bit of a beach day for my girlfriend's birthday, which was a lot of fun. And that took about most of my time. Obviously, checked in on the RAN Sevens tournament, which we'll get into a little bit as well. And I'm in the MLR the draft, some little bit of MLR news. So more Saracens players being unjustly handed red cards. This conspiracy must end, I think, in World Rugby.
I wouldn't go for them. They're the one overturning decisions. So.
Oh yeah. No, actually, sorry. Yeah. What's the governing body that keeps? It's the refs. The refs themselves that keep handing out red cards. Or the bunker thing. Bunker's not working. Bunker's not working at all. Yeah, so good on World Rugby for letting all the Saracens continue to play and annoy everybody on the planet. That's what makes me happy when everybody else is miserable. So that's about how my weekend is. I'm excited for that interview that we got later. It's a pretty fun one too. So
it is a pretty fun one. But conspiracy theories aside, let's talk about the RAN Sevens, which took place in Langford in British Columbia, the home of Rugby Canada, their stadium. And it was the qualification tournaments for both the men's and women's for the Americas spot. I'll put it this way. Canada women are the only professional team in their respective tournament.
Yeah.
And the United States and Canada were the only professional teams in the men's respective tournament. So guess what the final was? Long story short, the women's resort had Canada finishing first, and in doing so, they have secured their qualification for Paris 2024. This will mark their third Olympics in succession at the Olympic Sevens, with Mexico and Jamaica progressing to the Olympic repechage, which is set to take place in June of 2024. In the men's, the only real competitive match was the final between the USA and Canada. The USA started out strong. Canada was able to pounce on a handling error from the USA to give them a narrow lead. However, the USA finished the half with a try, returning the lead to them, and in the second half scored 2 more tries, put the game beyond measure, beyond doubts, and ensure that the USA will be returning to Paris with that Olympic qualification slot taken. But this is not the end. For the men, they have finished runners-up. That means they also progress to the repechage along with Mexico. And that repechage at the moment will feature Chile, Brazil, Great Britain, Spain, and 6 other teams besides Mexico and Canada. So that looks like it's going to be a really rough tournament for them. So the repechage tournament will be taking place, as I said, in June of 2024. The Olympics will begin in late July. If Canada is able to qualify, I do believe it gives them the best representation besides the Sevens, which is replacing the World Series. But yeah, as I said before, not a lot. It's very predictable outcome, I would say.
Yeah.
I think
that's good though. Especially from the women's team. Obviously, it's when you're playing teams that you should beat, it is good to beat them, right?
Yeah.
And similarly for the Canadian men's side, it's nice to see them put up big scores against some of the against the other teams in RAN, right? And then obviously the USA kind of did the same thing, right? In this tournament, obviously it came down to USA versus Canada in the final, but right, and the Americans are obviously a very good team. But it is sometimes it's like you go up against teams that it's like you should beat, and it is even though you're saying it's predictable, it's good to see the form that they were playing with on the weekend and getting the job done that they needed to get done. Unfortunate that the men's team does have to go into the repechage again, but I don't know. It's like looking at the other teams in there. I think they got a chance. How is Great Britain in the repechage? I don't remember how that happened. But like, who did they lose to end up?
They lost to Ireland in the European finals.
Oh wow.
Like
Okay.
in the final game as well. It was
Yeah. Okay.
it was probably like the same thing between uh the US in the same way as like between the USA and Canada. It's
Yeah.
like these are the two like top teams. And admittedly, Spain is also in the mix as
Yeah. Spain's
well.
good too.
So
At the like, I mean, we'll see who the other six teams end up being, but
yeah,
like Canada can do well at that tournament. I mean, as you kind of said too, right? Like they're gonna have the whole sevens series, the new format that they've introduced there. So they got that entire series to I don't want to build up to
yeah,
the repechage tournament, right? Which is what you want. You want to be playing meaningful rugby in order to help you build up to the most meaningful games, which will now be for next year the repechage tournament and the Olympics. And then, kind of the same thing for a lot of the women's sevens team too, right? They get the seven series. Some of the women that are on that team that are also on the 15s team will definitely have big opportunities as well with WXV and a few other of big tournaments, plus playing in the Premier 15s, or that's not what that league's called anymore. Premiership Women's Rugby. Is that what it's called?
yes, that's what's
Okay,
called.
good. All right. I was gonna say I was kind of trying to pull that off the top of my head. But yeah, so they'll have a lot of opportunities too. So hopefully by the time it hits Paris 2024, it'll be both the Canadian teams can be flying into that.
Yeah.
A bit of work to be done for the men's team still, but a pretty positive tournament overall.
Yeah, I think it also this shows like the marker of how much things have changed from the 2018-2019 World Series, which was used as the qualifier for the top four teams for Japan.
I kind of
Because
I don't see why you know some of I don't see why every country shouldn't get a shot at qualifying for it, right?
no, I understand. What by that I mean is that if you look back on yeah, I guess 4 years ago, for the qualification, it was New Zealand and Fiji, Fiji being the defending champions, New Zealand being, continuous world champions. But also the United States finished second in that World Series table. And then when you compare it to the 22-23 World Series, they're finishing down in 10th.
Mm-hmm.
And this is because, a lot of countries are now recognizing the importance of sevens and building towards those programs. And, we have Argentina, who in qualifying for 2020, they didn't win a single tournament. I think during the entire World Series season, they had their best result in Las Vegas, which also tells you how much things have changed. Is that I'm saying Las Vegas was one of the venues of the World Series. But then you look at the season that's just gone. Argentina won the tournament in Hamilton and in Vancouver, and and I think in London as well, because that was a different tournament. So, or different tournament structure, because it was that the Canada was in that elimination pool, so they didn't get any points, so points were different. Anyway, but you look at how teams have changed, how teams are utilizing the World Series at the moment to be part of these qualifiers. I don't know what the 2028 qualifier is going to look like. Obviously, the USA doesn't need to worry about qualifying for that because they're the hosts, but it's going to be interesting to see. And then, and also if you can just be the cat amongst the pigeons, disrupting it, which is what France was in this season, because yes, they didn't win any of the tournaments, but they finished fourth, which then pushed Australia, who finished fifth, into qualifying. So I don't know. I think it's going to be tough for Canada for Canada men's, especially with the announcement with Great Britain and Spain, two other core teams that finished higher than them in the World Series, being in that repechage tournament with only one spot available. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but obviously, when details of that tournament come out, we will let you all know and cheer on the boys as best as we can. Right, let's go from international rugby to more focused on North America with MLR. Big announcement came through, which absolutely shook MLR to its foundation. Yes, it's right. It's a relocation, and that is Doug Fraser relocating from a professional rugby player to a former professional rugby player, as he has announced his retirement from rugby. The Old Glory DC fan favorite, and has suited up as captain multiple times. We've had him on the show. He's been great to chat to after games when DC make their way up north. And yeah, it's great because he was a great player and just a great guy overall. Yeah. Especially was like my impression of him, at least. And yeah, he's been with DC through thick and thin. Yeah, when they started, they obviously the 2020 season didn't pan out as well as they did. 2021, not finishing certain games that well, finishing in the bottom half of the table. The 2022 season, obviously with the coaching changes and everything going on, but that turnaround halfway through the season, and then obviously the season just gone, making all the way to the playoffs and the Eastern Conference Final for the first time. I think there's a lot that Doug can feel proud about with being with DC, and obviously being Canadian. We've supported him through thick and thin. Been great to see his name being announced in like long lists for teams, and obviously we want to see him suit up for Canada one more time. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen anymore. But we respect the decision, and Doug, wish you all the best with whatever comes next.
Yeah, I believe Doug scored the first try in Old Glory history too, which was fun because I think it was a part of a weekend too, where I think Matt Heaton got the first try for Rugby ATL, and there was a couple of Canadians were putting up the first tries for a few franchises when they all came into the league. So Fraser obviously kind of left a big mark on Old Glory, and Old Glory has always been a team that has pretty big a little Canadian embassy that they've built up in in DC there, and like they've always had, this seems like throughout their history they've always had like 3 or 4 Canadians on the team. But Doug's obviously been like the core guy that's been there the entire time, and it's going to be a little weird watching Old Glory next year without Doug Fraser on the squad. So best of luck in retirement, and it was fun watching him play, and he'll be missed on the field, but I'm sure there's plenty of great things still left for him.
Absolutely. And in less important news, Rugby ATL is no more. They're just getting rid of the T and swapping the letters around, as they have officially relocated to Los Angeles. Now, at this moment in time, the ownership group hasn't been revealed. A new team name hasn't been announced yet. So for the time being, we're just going to call them Rugby LA to keep them to their Rugby ATL roots. If that is your name, no. Actually put some effort into giving yourself an identity. I think that was the biggest issue with the rebrand for Rugby ATL last year. So
I've said it a lot of times on this podcast. I mean, we can all laugh at Giltinis for how bad it is. At least they named the team. Rugby ATL wasn't a great team name. I don't know what the LA team is going to be called, but you could literally open up the dictionary and just whatever you land on, it'll probably be better than Rugby LA or LA Giltinis. So not a super high bar to clear, but you do have to clear it. There's a lot of cool words in the English language that you can use to
Yeah.
name a sports team after. You just have to pick one of them. It's not hard.
And speaking of the MLR, we also had the MLR Collegiate Draft for 2023 this week just gone. So a total of, if my math is correct, 39 names picked across the 3 rounds. And we're saying this as well because the official relocation announcement came at the same time as the draft. It was the first thing announced in the morning, so that we all knew, because we knew that they weren't going to Atlanta, so we needed to know where they were going. So but obviously congratulations to everyone who was drafted, and in particular we're going to point out the Canadians, or Canadian eligible I should say, names that were drafted: Monty Weatherall, Scott Bowers, Josh Halliday, Gabe Casey, and Louis Millet as well. And interesting, I should say, Louis Millet, because he is our special guest, and that interview is coming up right now. And we are back. And as promised, we are joined by a very special guest. He is one of the 2 draftees for the Toronto Arrows in the 2023 MLR Collegiate Draft. Ladies and gentlemen, Louis Millet. Thank you for joining us today.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. Okay. So as we normally begin all of our interviews with, no matter where you are, everyone had their start in rugby. So what got you started in rugby to begin with?
What got me started into rugby? Well, quite a few things, really. You know, I grew up surrounded by rugby, with a rugby ball, with people playing rugby. And for me, I can actually really remember it clearly. I started to play soccer back home. Started as a striker. The months after was a midfielder. The months after was a defender. The months after was a goalkeeper. I ended up being on the bench forever. So I was like, maybe it's a time for change for me. And I was doing the Rugby World Cup in 2007, 2008. The one that was in France at the time. And just, watching the TV with my dad yelling at the TV, I was like, damn, that's pretty exciting. So I'm gonna try to play a rugby, and showed up to a tryout for what became afterwards my forever club in France, and didn't get in. So I started to try to pick up other sports, and I got a call back a few weeks after, saying that one of the kids got injured. So there's an extra spot, and the spot's for me, and never quit since then.
Yeah. So, okay, you kind of alluded to it there. So part of the, I guess the desire to start playing rugby was, because you're from Toulouse in France. So that's where the Rugby World Cup was in 2007. Was there, anybody in that World Cup specifically, or any teams that you were watching that kind of jumped out as a little bit of the inspiration to play, or even as your position as a flanker? Like, did you watch somebody at that tournament that kind of sparked the ambition to play some rugby there?
Oh man, I have a pretty straightforward answer for you guys. Thierry Dusautoir. I hope that rings a bell for you guys.
Yeah, oui.
An absolute legend, and I got the chance to meet him as a kid. And this guy was so humble. Literally, his nickname was the Dog Destroyer, and he was the most humble, nice person I've ever met, honestly. And I was like, damn, you can be a nice guy and genuine and all those things, but also be an absolute killer in the field. That kind of sounds exciting. That's kind of who I want to be. So most definitely that was really one guy that I started. I'm not going to say it was an idol, but pretty much one of them when I started playing rugby. Yeah, really. Thierry Dusautoir.
All right.
Good answer.
Definitely good answer. So you were mentioning before you were watching the Rugby World Cup in 2007 with your dad. Was he instrumental in getting you into rugby, or was there anyone else who started your career?
Well, the thing is that my dad is a big dude. He is a big dude. But he never played rugby. He just grew up in a part of France where it was not nearly as popular. And where he grew up to rugby, like if you played rugby, you're known for liking to throw punches.
Fair.
His parents,
That's fair enough.
so his parents kind of decided to keep him out of rugby, but he was an outstanding skier. Did the European Championship, the French Championship, and all of the above. And it was a massive competitor. So even though my dad wasn't necessarily a big rugby person to start with, he ended up becoming one really like when I started playing rugby. And I can pretty much guarantee you that he was at every single game. I don't think he ever missed a game, to be quite honest with you, since I've been 8 or 9. And he was also the loudest guy on the sidelines. So yeah, that was he definitely played a major role in who I am on the field today.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess also, obviously, you've been playing for Bishops and been living in Canada. But growing up in like Toulouse, like what's that like kind of growing up in like a major like rugby city? 'Cause it's kind of something that at least, well, I mean, Stu's from Wales, so maybe I'm the only one that didn't, but like I kind of like growing up here, it's like, you kind of first exposure to rugby and everything's in high school. And like, it's obviously professional rugby with the Toronto Arrows. It's like they're going into, Major League Rugby still new. Right. And, professional rugby still very, very fresh here. So it's like, what's it kind of like as you were, growing up, starting to play rugby, but in doing so in kind of one of the hotbeds for the sport around the world?
Man, it is. Listen, like there's a saying back home. It's like for us, rugby is a religion, but actually, uh, what I mean by it's a religion is that people like eat rugby, sleep rugby, play rugby, and if you don't play rugby back home, like you're gonna have a tough time from a social standpoint. Well, I'm maybe being a bit critical and biased because I played rugby, but that's how it felt for me. But like when you get the chance to discover a sport where you know there's something much bigger about it than just playing it. It really brings something different to the table. Um, we also have a saying back home that I really like and that I still apply to myself to this day. But rugby is the school of life, because when I say it's a school of life, there's so many values that you learn along your adventure on the rugby field that are going to be useful for the rest of your life, from companionship to hard work to dedication to understanding that to function and reach your goals, you're going to need everyone, from the tall to the short to the scrappy to the guy that knows all the rules. Like you're going to need everyone in order to reach your goals. And that's really something that was there in Toulouse. And on top of that, really, really, it's the competitiveness of it. Like, last time I was talking to one of my friends, and we're kind of counting all the professional teams that there is in Toulouse and around Toulouse, and just in like a 75-kilometer like area around Toulouse. It was absurd. Like it was like more professional teams that there is in the MLR in Toulouse and around Toulouse. So it kind of gives you an idea of like how competitive it is there. And like you just look at the French team right now, like I think it's 11 of those guys are playing currently for Toulouse. And I think it's a total of like 15 of them that have been either playing for Toulouse at some point or went through the Toulouse Academy. Yeah. So it kind of goes to show how competitive it is down there.
Yeah. So like when you're saying it's like there's like, so many professional teams kind of around, like what's like, I guess like the vibe in the city like on like game days and stuff, or like when those teams have to like play each other, or like how do you like kind of determine like your allegiances to say like one club versus the other, maybe not just in the top 14 but as you kind of trickle down the pro levels too?
Well, man, listen, it is unique, like it's honestly hard to describe, to be quite honest with you, because there's just so much rugby going on. Really, like there's just so much rugby going on every single day. Like really, you go on a Thursday, you're gonna find a professional game. You're gonna go on a Friday, you're gonna find a professional game. Saturday, Sunday, like 5 blocks away from where you live. Like it is absurd in that sense. And that was like one of the biggest difference I found between like France and Canada. Obviously, it's not comparable, but it was this level of you know, the amount of teams you have, obviously, but also just like there's a team for everyone. You know, man, at school, like, well, I'm of course from Toulouse, so most people would be for Toulouse, but the amount of arguments I got during lunchtime because some guy was from Cast, which is like 45 minutes away from Toulouse, and because he grew up there, it's like, yeah, like I hate Toulouse, and like you nobody because you play for like you support Cast, so you must be nobody. Like things like this that will go on and on and on and on. So yeah, like it was like really unique in that sense.
All right, so let's move into like your rugby career and how it started and the growth, because you developed through. I'm apologies if I butcher this club name, Avenir Castellane.
Yeah, you got it almost right.
Almost right, Stu. Almost right. So you're improving on most of your pronunciation.
Yeah. All right, thank you. So what was the training and development like with such a club compare because obviously we have the comparison of like Ontario clubs and the academy system that's only just been implemented in MLR. So how many years did you spend there growing through the ranks?
I think I started playing rugby at 7 and starting age 12 I was averaging like at 10, 12 hours a week of rugby, just training wise, plus sevens game, sevens on Wednesdays and the 15th on the weekend. So that was during like my middle school, and getting to high school. I joined so it's called a training center. That's not okay. So it's just a different name for it, but a training center. And so for that training center, we had 4 hours within school, but like so the way it works in French is slightly different from like what I will call an English system, where you usually play for your school. Eventually, you play for a club or for an academy. Where in France, you solely play for your club or your academy, and you can kind of play for your high school. But it's not going to be good rugby. Like, let me tell you that.
Okay.
But so starting high school, I was doing probably like 4 hours through school, directly at school, because we had like a proper rugby field and stuff. So they had like a training program. I was in a what was the name for that again? Like a student athlete, pretty much, for high school. So we're doing like already a lot of sports at school, and within the club itself, we'll be training between 2 and 3 times a week with the whole team. But that was 4 or 5 of us per like year group that will be getting selected to the training center. And so at the training center, we'll be working with like proper coaches that will like eventually help you develop into a professional player. But like the biggest difference to me between like what I found in Canada or France, really, like the first thing I'm gonna say is that like Canadian rugby brought to me as much as French rugby. It gave me a different sense of work, a different sense of how to reach certain goals. So in that sense, like Canadian rugby brought much more to me, as much to me. But the real difference that I find in how it was back home is that there's a certain attention to details that you don't necessarily find here. And with certain attention to details, it's obviously like individual skills and all the above. But listen, like we'll spend like maybe 2 hours a week on molding as a fucking 15-year-old. No, but like some people will be like, "What? That's so boring. You must hate it." It's like, no, I had a fucking blast, to be completely honest with you. Like you'll leave practice being all sore and questioning like, did I get a concussion or not? But at the end of the day, like, that wins games. That actually wins games for you. And so it's really this attention to details on the small things. That was like the biggest difference to me. And they will call you the fuck out if you're not doing the right thing. Like they will call you out, and you'll be running laps, and they will try and to test like how tough you were too. There's a big part of the big. I don't like to say this, but training in Canada, like someone's gonna get a little hit in the head, and for fair reasons, he's gonna be taken out of the field. It's like, oh, like we're gonna do all the concussion protocol and all the above. But don't get me wrong, this is so important. Like, don't play with your head, don't play with your neck. Like, there's things that are just more important than rugby. But in France, like, you don't even know what a concussion is. They don't talk about it. You take a knee to the head, you're out for a minute 30. They're gonna make you wait on the sideline for 20 minutes, and if you can count up to 5, you're gonna be back on the field. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that this is a different mindset towards it. So, yeah, it is definitely like for me. Yeah, biggest difference is the attention to details. Really, that's one of the key things to me.
Attention to details and concussions don't exist.
Yeah. That's something I should be saying because like they might get in a bit of illegal. No, I'm kidding. I don't even think they have. I don't think they have found a definition of concussion in France yet. So we're gonna let them figure out what a concussion is, and when they find what a concussion is, I'll maybe correct myself.
Well, I mean, that is part of the benefit of being in Canada, right? The free healthcare system. I'm making that joke. I have no idea what the healthcare system in France is like, but I don't know. Well,
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. Oh, never mind.
You don't spend a penny on anything. No, but like.
Oh, never mind that. I'm used to talking to like American fans and stuff. I can make that joke, but then no.
No. For us, I honestly think that the French health system might be one of the. I don't know if it's one of the best, but one of the cheapest. So we'll keep it this way. But no, but I'm obviously kidding about concussions. Like, let's be extra careful about this. But it is serious matter. Like I have friends. Like I'm really lucky. I only got one in my life, but from what I know of.
All right. So speaking of differences between France and Canada, you obviously made the decision to join Bishop's University and eventually Bishop's University's men's rugby team. So what was the decision to join Bishop's as opposed to any of the fine universities across Canada?
Well, maybe what's important to mention on that is I was set pretty early on my life that I wanted to study abroad. Maybe starting age 14, 15, I was kind of set on that. And, I had a good level of rugby. There's like no denying that, but like there was also guys that were significantly better. That was a reality. So, and I was lacking a bit of confidence in myself at the time. So, and also that was just not a goal of mine, as simple as it was. So, I never really considered being a professional player until like quite recently, to be honest with you. Which was like, okay, I have a good enough level to get a scholarship, potentially get an education, and most importantly, like learn English because. Showing up to Bishops, I couldn't speak a word of English, and so that kind of was my goal. And I initially started looking at the U.S. because you think about the American dream, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go to California, and you realize how affordable it is, so you forget about it. But I was in touch with several schools in the U.S. initially. Like the biggest one is most definitely Lindenwood. And I had great conversations and stuff with them, but even with a really decent scholarship, like it was not affordable for me. So decided to look to make a move to Canada. And I talked to like once again several universities there, but I just I was at lunch break in high school, got a call from that guy, rest in peace, Chaz Good, who was my head coach. He recently passed away, but it's only thanks to him. He was a unbelievable guy, community guy that was extremely important to the rugby community in Quebec. But he just randomly called me once and saying, "Hey man, like you want to have the best time of your life? Welcome to Bishops." And I was somewhat convinced. He had that little something about it that was just okay. Like he was so confident about it that. Yeah, you know what? I kind of want to have the best time of my life. Really, I want to make the best out of this potential experience. So, and I looked it up. I saw the campus, and I was in love with the campus, and that's all I needed. After like 2 weeks after that, I was signing paperwork to go to Bishops.
So, when did you learned English to just like as you were coming to Canada for the first time? So, like, how old were you when you started?
I was 17. I was 17. They're showing up to Canada. Well, because I'm born in September, so I'm going to turn 23 in September. But I was 17 showing up to Bishop. So yeah, just picture it this way, like that. I was like 5'11", 180 pounds, French guy showing up. I couldn't speak a word of English. They looked at me weird in the first place. They're like, oh, who the fuck is this guy? Couldn't speak a word of English too. So thankfully I was in Quebec, so guys could kind of like translate for me. But Bishop's is it's an English school, right? So some guys could like help me on stuff, but that was really tricky at the beginning. Couldn't speak a word of English. I just was like, I'll talk in field.
But you also a bit confused of going to Quebec where you're told that, oh, they speak French in Quebec, and then you actually hear Quebecois for the first time, and you're like, I have no idea what these guys are thinking.
Yeah, I work with a lot of Quebecers, so I'm gonna make sure I don't say anything too silly on that. But yes, it was extremely challenging to understand. So I still do to this day. Like I work full time with like Quebecers. That is tricky. It gets really tricky still to this day. So don't think it will ever change, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so you basically have to learn two languages, I guess, coming over from France then at that point.
Yeah, well, I wanted to learn English so bad that I developed a bit of resentment towards French people for a little bit. So it was just like, if someone spoke to me in French, I was like, yep, no, I can't talk to you. I'm sorry, I'm learning English. Which was a silly way to do it, but I mean, it worked out. So.
Did you? I mean, this interview is obviously being conducted in English and is going very well. So, like, what kind of like tricks and stuff did you do anything to kind of pick up the language quickly, or like how did you kind of go about doing it?
Jumped in the pool. There's no other choice. You want to make friends, you gotta go out there and be social. But the one thing I tell to people coming to Canada or just trying to learn English is, you just gotta accept that it's gonna suck. Really is. You're just gonna accept it's gonna suck. It's gonna be tough. There's gonna be quite a few times we're gonna try to say something, and you're really gonna want to say it really bad, but you're not gonna be able to, and that's just okay. It's a part of like the learning phase. But I also thankfully have like amazing friends around me. I mean, still like my best friends to this day. I met them the first week, and I never changed my friend group since then. That were really patient with me. Some of them like people from England were not as patient, but the Canadians were really patient with me. So it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned obviously the great group of friends and stuff that you had there, and part of the sales pitch to joining Bishops was to have and come over and have the best time of your life. So, did you end up having the best time of your life? How was the experience at Bishops?
I did have the best time of my life, that's for sure. Definitely like the best time of my life, but also just the most precious time of my life. The growth I got to experience coming to Bishops has been unbelievable. From a fun standpoint, yeah. Oh, I had a blast. Sometimes maybe a little too much, but thankfully never got in the way of achieving stuff. But like you move out of your country, there's no parents around you. There's just it's a different environment. Like especially Bishops, like. You need to define what are your limits and who you want to be in that environment. Otherwise, you can just get lost really quickly into a world that's not necessarily yours. And it took me a while to figure this out, to be quite honest. And once again, like I always refer to my friends, but I do genuinely have like the best group of friends I could have because, when you share values and when you share a certain vision of like who you want to be and what you want to do in life. It's important to have people to like kind of help you stay on track. And listen, like I could name you guys that without them being in my friend group, I would not be talking to you guys right now because I would have been probably making the wrong decision at the wrong time, and that would have been stopping me from doing all the things that I love doing now. So, that's probably one of the best things I've learned too at Bishops is yeah, you can have a good time, but surround yourself by people that want the best for you. And I do find those. I found those people, so it's great.
You can name them if you want. We can give them a little on the podcast, man. It's your first interview post draftees. You should shout out the people that helped you, man.
Yeah, well, I could give a couple of shootouts. The first one that's gonna come to my mind is obviously my buddy Jack Shaw, who plays for Atlanta. Now LA, I guess. He called me the fuck out so many damn times. So it was quite important. But we honestly like helped each other grow in so many different ways, and we connected super quick on rugby, and we both extremely competitive people. So didn't speak a word of English once again at the time, but we kind of respected each other, I guess, for what we wanted to produce on the field. I'll think also about my buddy Jack Wallace, who's the hardest worker I've ever seen, and he started playing rugby. Was not necessarily the best player, I'll tell you that, but now he's an unbelievable player, and he kind of goes to show that through a hard work and dedication, you can reach. You don't know what the limit is, and this guy's a perfect example of that. Just seeing how, there's things that you have under your control, and if you start taking ownership and a bit of accountability, and you wake up in the morning with a purpose, you can achieve things. So, without this guy, I would have not hit the gym as hard. I would probably just not go to the gym whatsoever, to be quite honest with you. And also, I also probably think about my friend Quinn, amazing guy, really fun guy as well. I'm sure he's having a great time out there in BC. He's playing for Victoria, so I'm sure he's having a great time out there. And also, obviously, one of my best friends too, John, who has been always the guy to talk to, and always the guy to remind me that sometimes, you're gonna have to go through shit to experience the good stuff. So, amazing group of guys, and could name you so many others, but we'll stick it to the core group.
Any thoughts on Jack Shaw's rookie season in MLR?
I'm not surprised, man. I'm not surprised. Listen, when I met Jack, it was already his dream to become a professional rugby player. Rugby was his life. Rugby really was his life. When we were 18, actually at the time, got him a tryout for Toulouse. We made a highlight tape and got him a tryout for Toulouse. He was supposed to go for 2 weeks with the Espoir, so like the U23, the program for Toulouse. And unfortunately got an injury at the time, and was like, I guess like rugby is done for me. He declared a year before me for the draft, and initially didn't get drafted. I was like, maybe that's it. And within a year, he went from playing for Bishops to being a starter in the MLR, and joining Team Canada over the summer. I'm not surprised. I think the only one that's maybe surprises him, but like he's been so dedicated for such a long period of time. Like it's no secret, really. Like hard work pays off, and like what he has today and what he shows today is not surprising me, to be quite honest.
Are you disappointed that Atlanta's moving to LA, so you only get to play him once next year?
I'm sure we'll find different ways to hang out. It's okay. We'll figure out a way to hang out. That's fine.
Hey,
that's fine.
Derek, you say that, but considering all the trades that Toronto have been doing with the team formerly known as Atlanta, maybe Jack could be making his way back north of the border again. Who knows?
Listen, I would love to, but it's okay. Listen, if I get to play against him, it will be a great time as well. I probably will piss him off so much that he won't talk to me for days, but that's all right. That's all right.
Yeah, it's all good. All good. Right. Well, speaking about the draft, obviously that took place last week. So was it through Jack that you were first made aware of the MLR draft, or have you just been keeping an eye on it for like the past couple of years?
I considered it seriously. I mean, I considered it whatsoever post-COVID. Like that COVID time where for some people it was extremely challenging, was actually like an amazing source of growth for me, because I was stuck in Canada. Canada is where I live, but I was in Canada for the entirety of COVID, from like the February when it happened, where they were like, you guys gonna have to like maybe go home for a week. So I was like, all right, well, like I'm not gonna fly back to France for a week, so I'm just gonna stick around. And I ended up not seeing my family for 2 years. So you see, it's been a bit of an interesting.
I fully understand where you're coming from, Louis.
Why is that?
Well, I'm British, so I flew back for my sister's wedding in mid-February of 2020, and because I was on like vacation mode, I wasn't paying attention to anything that was going on. And then I fly back at the start of March, and I'm then in the shops, just picking up groceries and stuff, and I get a text message saying like, "Did you hear about the MLS?" And I'm like, "What's going on with the MLS?" It's like, "Oh, they've suspended operations for 30 days." And that's when I realized maybe I should have been paying attention to this whole COVID thing that was going on. But yeah, I was in the same boat. Um, well, all of 2020, I was stuck in Canada. 2021, I'd applied for my permanent residency and was planning to go back for Christmas in 2021. But my permanent residency card didn't arrive until the first week of December in 2021. So I couldn't go back. And so I eventually went back in like July of 2022. So I fully understand.
That that's funny. I don't see like most international people, like we're in the same boat really, because
yeah,
like once again, like no one was really expecting that. And listen, like I'm so grateful honestly about it. Like it sounds probably awful because I know a lot of people had a terrible time with
oh,
COVID.
absolutely, yeah.
I had a blast. I had a blast. I was living with some friends, but I also, when you have that much free time in your hand, not as much money as you would like to, you kind of start wondering to yourself, like, what the fuck do I do with my life right now? Like, I don't know when this is, like, what do I do to better myself? And this is when I actually started working out. I started working out like 2.5, like 3 years ago. And I started working out. I was 175 pounds, maybe honestly a little less considering the partying I've done before that. But I was really skinny, and started lifting a lot of weight. And from lifting a lot of weight, realized, oh, maybe if I start adding this to my life, it's gonna make a difference. And so it was really like a positive moment for me, on top of just getting really close to some guys and learning a bunch of values along the way. I really developed, and I came back third year was still COVID. So I came back my fourth year, and I was playing differently than I was before, in the sense that like my first 2 years at Bishops, I was a skinny, extremely aggressive little guy that did a lot of things that he should have not done in the field, but lesson learned. Um, and I had to grow into a different player. I wasn't the first year that was kind of, not allowed to do anything he wanted, but yeah, he's young, like whatever. I had to grow into a different role for the guys coming in and for the culture we're trying to develop at Bishops. So it made quite a huge difference. And after that first season, where I actually like felt that I could dominate and I wanted to dominate for the next little bit, I was like, oh, maybe the MLR is not that silly. And I initially applied for the draft, but I couldn't really get drafted. I was in touch with a bunch of teams last year, but my visa situation was just making things too complicated on my side. So I had to wait until this year to have a proper shot.
So that was the one thing I was also kind of wondering, because obviously the draft is still pretty new for MLR, all things considered. And also for like rugby worldwide, it's a super unique thing to just North American rugby, really. So like you kind of mentioned how you attempted to enter the draft last year, but maybe had a visa issue. So like what is the draft process like? Say like once you declare for the draft, and then maybe up until the draft day, like how much conversations you actually having like with with the 13 teams in MLR, and like how does that work from a player's point of view as you're trying to enter the draft?
Well, the first year I've done it, I didn't have an agent, so I was doing it all on my own. That year I had like 3, 4 calls with different teams, but once they find out like, oh yeah, like you don't have your 60 month yet of residency, they're obviously a bit turned off, which is really understandable. Like if I'm a MLR owner and I'm trying to draft a guy, no matter how good he is, and he's an international, I would rather use that international roster spot for a guy that has experience, can be a core player right off the bat over a potential player, no matter like how good you may be. So that was that the first year, and this year I decided to be serious about it. So like, hey, listen, like it's my last shot to become a professional rugby player in North America. I might as well do it the right way. So I put in a lot of work towards it and found honestly the most amazing agent I could have ever found. On top of being an amazing guy, he's the absolute goat at his job, and I mean it. Like he is impressive at his job. And we kind of started working together on like what we're trying to achieve, what's the goal behind it, where do I want to go eventually, where do I do not want to go. So we kind of worked on all those things. And once I submitted my profile, and that honestly, like I'll tell you this, I don't care. I'm not doing play. There's an app called Playwise. This is where you submit your profile. This thing doesn't work. All right, so like you gotta be proactive. Like this is like I had to recreate an account and change a bunch, and it's not good. Like
Fair enough.
I'll sit aloud. It's not good. A bunch of my buddies ran into the same issue, so it's not just me saying it. But so yeah, pretty much you enter the draft, and things only start really moving really late. When I say really late, is that it's in the last 2 weeks of August, most likely by the end of the first week, where you're actually gonna be in touch with few teams. I always take the stand of being proactive about anything I do in my life, and I have no regrets. So I looked up all the GMs and potential coaches to reach out to them directly in person. With a nice little text, my rugby CV, my highlight tape, and all those things. But my agent also did that, and things really started like moving like crazy the week before the draft for me. When I went from like getting, like, yeah, thanks for reaching out, like we'll be in touch eventually, to like when can we call? So
Okay, interesting.
yeah.
So like what was the actual draft day like for you? Like did you watch it? Were you kind of like trying to avoid it, just wait for the phone call, or like how did that go? How'd you find out that eventually, you were becoming a Toronto Arrow?
Well, in all honesty, like I was kind of aware that I would get drafted by Toronto like slightly before the draft, because there's obviously like in the case of someone like me, if I had a Canadian passport or a US passport, that'll be a bit of a different story. But for me, there's more work that needs to be done. So I was kind of aware there's always that that 1-5% chance that it may not happen. So I was always like honestly worried, but I kind of knew about it. And guys, like I wish I had a great story where we all watched it with my friends and we all jumped and enjoyed. I was at work. I had a meeting. Like, I was at work in Quebec City, and I was like, I got the call. It's just like, cheers. Okay, I gotta go. But that was that was amazing, to be honest. Like I mean, still to this day, like I don't think I've realized it yet that I'm getting a chance to compete. But man, like I'm so looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm so grateful that I get to stay in Canada as well. Because ultimately, on top of because like when you play in Fed One, like you make money for my home club. If you play National Two, National One, Pro D2, Top 14, well, I don't think I have the level for that, to be completely honest. But the point being that you always get the question like, why don't you do it in France? So why don't you want to go back eventually to France to play rugby? Because it's more competitive, there's more money, all the above. But I am genuinely grateful for Canadian rugby, because personally, like Canadian rugby helped me reach certain goals that I would have never thought of before, from a confidence standpoint to a work ethic, a certain mindset, a different type of competitiveness. It helped me grow so much that I much rather be a part of a project where I can bring something to the table on and off the field right off the bat, over just being one amongst so many in France. Really, like that's as simple as it is. Like I'm I've been living in Canada for over 5 years now, way over 5 years. and I've been honestly absolutely in love with the country. And rugby brought so much to my life that I want to be in a position where I can give that back in a certain way. And so for me, being in Toronto is the absolute dream in that sense, because I know I'm going to be put in a position where through hard work and dedication, I may be able to bring something to the table, to the organization, obviously, but also to Canadian rugby. So I'm super, super excited for that.
Yeah, man, that's great to hear that. Great to hear that outlook from you. Also
great to hear that you've been here for 5 years under World Rugby eligibility definition. If you've been here 60 months, then
61 months this day.
61 months today. All right. I believe that is a domestic player allocation sorted. Don't quote me on that.
Exactly. But we joking about it, but like it's key. Like, and listen, if I was at 59 months, probably wouldn't get drafted. Like, really,
yeah.
That's how, like, that's what I mean by, like, I'm genuinely so grateful, because yeah, it took a fuck ton of work on my side to like grow as a player, but it took also like a fuck ton of work, and people don't see it, but it is a lot of work to create your chance when once again, like, if someone looks at it not with a lot of attention, is just gonna see French. I can draft him because he is French, and you really have to plead that you reach a 60 months. And like, I have done all the regulation 8.1 World Rugby. I can tell exactly what it is. I looked it up.
Got it, like, memorized. It's written like the poster on the wall, just the World Rugby laws.
No, like, I could be a lawyer for them at that point. I know the rule well, like, damn too well. So no, yeah, it was that there's like so much luck into that. Like, like, it's also, I'm in Quebec, and needless to say, in Quebec there's a big amount of French players. And like, you look at let's say, for example, the Quebec's final last weekend that I went to watch. Man, those guys are absolutely filthy. Really, these guys are absolutely filthy. There's guys that, like, yeah, being quite fair, like, some guys might be as good as me or even better than me. Like, it's a reality of it. But for different reasons, some guys just don't really want to put the work in. So that's already that out of the way. There's some guys that are trying really hard, but they're not being put in a position to succeed. So all I'm trying to say there is that when you get a chance like this, no matter like the monetary value behind it, or no matter what people may think of it, and then you're getting the chance to play your sport professionally. Like, all you gotta do is give it your best. Like, you have that one shot, and I always dream of having that one shot for me to compete. Because, say, like about myself, like, that's the one thing. I'm a competitor, and I love to compete. You get that chance. Like, all you gotta do is work your ass off. Like really, because there's so many guys that would like to be in my position, and I'm so grateful to get a chance to do that. Really, I am.
Yeah, so obviously, with to stay on the theme of working your ass off to get ready for professional rugby career. Obviously, you got a couple months now. Obviously, you're going to be a Toronto Arrow. Arrow's got a pretty solid back row, guys like Rumball, Edie, Flash, O'Neill. It's a really good group back there. What are you looking to kind of focus on as, like, you do it throughout, like, some off-season training to kind of, get ready for camp, just as the calendar flips over to 2024?
There's several things. The first one is like physicality. Because the way I play, like, as I said, in the university, I had to play more of a number 8 in like a playmaking role, I guess. Where, like, that's not what I do. What I do is tackle, poach the ball, and piss people off. Like that. That's what I do. Yeah, I guess I'm really cliche of what a French person is, but that's really what I do. So I still have a lot of room to develop. I'm still young, and I still think I have a couple pounds that I could put on that wouldn't limit my speed. But so I'm gonna try to develop physically. I have formulas to do it. Also, you say cardio wise. and also like mentally, in the sense that like I like to believe I have good life habits now. I meal prep. I have a pretty clear idea of what's my protein intake. I work out. I go on runs. I'm even a little cliche. When I have my coffee in the morning, I write down in my notebook things to be grateful for, and what's my plan for the day. Read my book. Like, it's a little cliche, but like you actually see the value in developing good habits. And so my goal is to really keep building those habits, life habits, that will benefit me directly once I get to Toronto. And man, like having guys that are like that good ahead of you, it's a blessing. Like it really is a blessing. Like I'm going to compete, so like all I'm gonna do is literally learn from them, and that's sick. Really, that is sick. Like from and also from their standpoint too, because having being put in a position as a man, like I'm personally a guy, once I get comfortable, I don't perform as well, and I most definitely don't get the chance to like match some of their this, how could I say this, like assets on the field, because guys are just like more experienced or stronger. Like there's so many different things where I'll not necessarily be able to match right off the bat, but the one thing where I know I'll be able to challenge some of the guys is that like that idea of like competing also at training, because like you play in the weekend like you train during the week, so I can guarantee you that I'm gonna go all in. Also, gotta protect myself, and if I got 80% against a guy that's stronger than me with more experience, I might hurt myself. So I'm gonna have to go all in, and just bring this intensity at training is gonna add a real value, in my opinion. Um, and yeah, but the one thing really for me is gonna be the intensity. That's the one thing where I'm um pretty confident in my abilities, as I know like when I'm taking on a 1v1, like it's a 1v1, you have two arms, two legs, I'm gonna bring you down.
I feel like you said like 9 things in that speech that I want printed on a T-shirt to walk around York Lions Stadium when you start playing.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
No, I just feel like tackle, poach, piss people off that'd be like a good, like, you could throw like an arrow logo on underneath that, could put your name on the back. That'd be a good T-shirt, man. Be a good brand. You should talk to your the GOAT agent about getting the arrows to start working on that.
Well, I'm gonna be completely honest to you guys. The first call I had with Tim Matthews, the GM of the Arrows, I was like, Tim, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to be rude, but like what I do is I'm a dick. It's like I'm sorry for being rude here, but that's really who I am. I'm a dick, and I'll piss people off. Like you can ask anyone that play against me in Quebec. They don't like me, and I like it because it means I did my job.
Yeah, it's just that's a very good thing. Yeah, that's a very
If you annoy people on the opposition in the opposing team, it's good. If you annoy people on your own team, that's when it's a problem. So
yeah, this is where you maybe have to rethink who you are and what you do.
all right. Well, speaking of like the Arrows and MLR as a whole, it's still in its infancy. It's going to be going into its 7th season, 6th full season, in 2024. Besides seeing you in the match day 23, what are you hoping to see from MLR over the next few years?
What am I hoping to see from them? Like, it's a tricky question, to be honest with you. I I have a bit of a different vision than most people when it comes to the MLR, because I honestly find people extremely critical about the MLR, how it's structured. It's like the league is 7 years old. Like,
Yeah.
and like, look at French rugby. It only started being actually professional in the early 2000s, maybe like late 90s for some of the guys. But the professional league that we know now in France, it took 10, 15, like realistically 20 years to develop and look the way it does now. So you look at how the MLR is trying to expand and grow, really. I personally found it really good. Yes, there's always things that you can do better, obviously, like anywhere else. but I'm just really hoping they're gonna keep up with the work they're doing in order to really develop that. Maybe creating a team in Montreal wouldn't be a bad idea, because considering the amount of French people you have, I can guarantee you that will be the best fan base right off the bat. So whoever wants to invest millions in a new franchise, go to Montreal.
Yeah, we've been talking about on previous podcasts of where in Canada can there be other Canadian MLR teams. Vancouver obviously comes up, but I've been championing Montreal and getting that Quebecer and French Canadian base to get behind it.
Well,
but again, it's I'm just in need of a few 25 million US dollars. If you have that lying around, then please let us know and we'll get right on it.
No, but that's like when you see like the direction that Miami is taking with an Argentinian coach, Argentinian key players, like they do definitely want to have this identity at the moment of Argentinian rugby. So if Miami is capable of taking that path, I don't really know what the fan base is gonna be like in Miami. I honestly have no idea if it's big in Florida. But you go to Montreal specifically, like Quebec as a whole, maybe, but Montreal specifically, the French population is absurd. Like it actually, like I hear more French from France than French from Quebec sometimes. It bugs me, I have to say, but you hear so much French from France. So, and you go to like let's say the Quebec finals, it's so many French people on the sideline. So because we do have this vision of the festive, exciting, like French game where you go, and like no shame in that, but some people just go and get seriously drunk and yell on the sideline. Like, hey, like it's fun to do that. I've been there, but the point being is that really from developing a franchise and having a strong fan base, like a meaningful fan base. And you kind of twist that between Canadian rugby and French rugby. You can get your visibility up and so many things just by being French. I would see it really working. Like really, for me, it actually kind of shocks me that no one thought of Montreal yet, or maybe someone did, but yeah, as you guys said, missing a 25 million.
Yeah. Money's important.
Yeah. Well, it's also worth mentioning that Toulouse currently has a Rugby Alliance partnership with Utah Warriors. So it seems though there is this growing connection with French rugby. But yeah, getting a team in Montreal or just Quebec in general can definitely be a money printing factory in a few years or decades down the line, it seems.
I strongly believe so. And with the World Cup coming, like it's meant to grow, and I think we're on the right path. People just gotta be patient and accept that sometimes you don't have to do the nicest thing or the coolest thing in order to reach your goals. And yeah, like and since I'll be excited, I would love to have the same conversation 10 years from now.
All right, we'll have that interview penciled in for 10 years' time.
Maybe one or two between the 10-year gap.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. All right. So, to our listeners and our viewers, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out more as well as our written pieces on our new website, therougerugby.ca. You can also find our podcast on Spotify, S4P, and Apple Podcasts. We also have our YouTube channel at The Rouge Rugby with episodes of the podcast as well as extra interviews with players and coaches in the Black Box. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification to stay up to date with all our videos. We are also available across social media, including Facebook, Twitter, or X, whichever you want to call it, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, all at The Rouge Rugby. So, Louis, where can the people find you on social media before they see you hit the pitch?
Super simple, Louis. I think it must be a dash or something. There's a little thing in between, and me, MILLET, if anyone is willing to check this out.
And Derek, where can the fine people find you?
At Brissette the Jet across all social media platforms.
And you can find me across social media at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. Well, Louis, thank you very much for joining us on this episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast. Derek, thanks as always. And To all our listeners and viewers, thank you for joining us for the Rouge Rugby podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. We hope you can join us again next time.